Hey guys, so you ready for today's April 30th, 2021, 12:23 a.m. Central Time. This is so fucking intriguing on how our society now warps everything to race. Okay? It's sick, actually, quite goddamn sick. And I think civil rights leaders are rolling over in their goddamn graves over what is happening these days. But that's beside the point. The reason I'm going over this isn't just to say, hey, they're trying to do this. It's because I'm going to show you how warped this got. This started in 2013, okay? Banning menthol cigarettes is what the Biden administration announced it's going to do, which was not a shocking surprise. Again, it's been going on. But the FDA said that they're going to propose a rule change through the Federal Register, which I'm bringing up. I'm bringing up articles, Federal Register, some law, the original petition from 2013, all this stuff. Should be an interesting video for you. Anyway, said they're going to come out banning menthol cigarettes on behalf of racial equity. Okay? So if you don't know the history behind this, you're like, interesting. They're banning menthols based on the fact they disproportionately affect the African American / minority population. And if you go on YouTube and put in banning menthol cigarettes, and you do top news or even within the last 48 hours this week, whatever, you'll come up with some news sites. Okay, mostly. I didn't find any independent, but I didn't scan too far. But I watched them. ABC, CNBC, MSNBC, CBS, and, well, they kind of repeated, but they were different videos. Anyway, I watched them, right? All claiming that it has to do with racial equity, right? Not much else. They kind of gloss over the original, quote, reason this started. So I brought up just went on Yahoo, scanned some articles, and it is a continuing trend. Okay, this is WGN9, Chicago, very own. U.S. vows again to ban menthol flavor in cigarettes, cigars. And it goes in here. U.S. health regulators pledge again Thursday to try and ban menthol cigarettes, this time under pressure from African American groups to remove the mint flavor popular among black smokers. And then it says Thursday's announcement is a result of a lawsuit filed by anti-smoking and medical groups last summer to force the FDA to finally make a decision on menthol, alleging the regulators had, quote, unreasonably delayed, end quote, responding to a 2013 petition seeking to ban the flavor. And then it goes into the action would also ban menthol and fruity flavors from low-cost small cigars, which are increasingly popular with young people, especially black teens. So you see that is obviously peppered through this article. Moving on, going to people.com. Biden administration to announce plan to ban menthol cigarettes reports. Public health and civil rights groups have been pushing for a ban on menthol cigarettes, which they say have been aggressively marketed towards black communities. The Biden administration is planning to propose a ban on menthol cigarettes, according to several reports, after years of lobbying from the public health groups and civil rights activists who say the product frequently has been aggressively marketed towards and disproportionately harmed black communities. And then it goes on, menthol cigarettes have been pushed on black communities in the United States more than other groups, according to the New York Times. Black smokers use menthol cigarettes like, there was an ad in the way. Like those from Newport and Cool 85% of the time, 3 times more than white smokers, according to the FDA. Now, all of this statistics that you will see or are seeing are accurate. Okay, apparently African Americans choose menthol over other cigarettes. Okay, a statistic, most claiming statistic I saw percentage wise was about 85 to 87% of African Americans use menthol cigarettes, which is really high. And I've known lots of black people in my time quite a few who've smoked, and none of them smoked menthol, so that's kind of weird. I used to be a smoker for almost a decade, and I quit probably 5-6 years ago. I can't even remember at this point. And I smoked Marlboro menthol cigarettes. So this was intriguing back then to see how this was going to work out anyway. So I followed this for a little while. So when I heard this push that has to do with racial equity, I was like, ooh, let's see how this is getting spun, right? So apparently I'm part of the 28 to 29% of white people who use menthol cigarettes. Or I should say used. Okay? And it keeps going on and on. The predatory marketing of menthol cigarettes and other flavored tobacco products must be stopped. And we must all recognize this is a social justice issue, and one that disproportionately impacts youth and communities of color. Signed by the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council the NAACP and the National Medical Association said. So obviously it keeps going on. Black communities for years. And we're going to move on to another one. News, right? What is this, NBC? Yeah. FDA poised to ban menthol cigarettes this week, experts predict. The action would not remove menthol tobaccos from stores immediately, but rather kick off a rulemaking process to do so, which could take several years. And then it says, the FDA appears likely to move on a ban menthol cigarettes this week, a step experts say that has been years in the making and that could have a significant positive impact on the health of Black Americans. Quote, the winds are definitely in our favor, end quote. Delmont Jefferson, executive director for the Center of Black Health and Equity, citing both decades of data that show the cooling flavor in cigarettes makes it easier to start smoking, combined with the current cultural momentum toward improving the lives of Black Americans. Okay. Again, it continues to go on and on about African Americans. Okay. Moving on to another article. This is also from 2021 year. Vaping Daily ran into this website. Killer of Black Americans, menthol cigarettes likely to be banned. After decades of inaction, the new Biden administration is floating the possible ban of menthol cigarettes. Flavored tobacco products have played an oversized role in adverse health outcomes for generations of African Americans, and not by accident. The role tobacco companies played in deliberately marketing menthol brands like Kool and Newport has been well documented throughout the years. Starting in the 1950s, Big Tobacco took an aggressive approach to pushing menthol cigarettes onto the Black community through political donations, sponsored cultural events, and even free giveaways. Even though many in the African American community have called menthol cigarettes to be banned, the federal government sidestepped the issue for many years. The new administration, however, may have the political capital necessary to push through the ban. This article is probably the worst I read because it is just for that last sentence, okay? Saying that this administration somehow has more, like, political capital, okay? More power, more interest, more likelihood, whatever, of getting this through because of this person right here, who is all about race, and so is his party, right? And they say in here, and it's put through the other articles too as well, as I read, that the African American community is pushing for this, and that the African American community has been put off, pushed aside, and everything else until this administration. The spin is so hilarious. So then I decided to pull up an older article from when in the Federal Register, which I'll show you, the original one, in 2018, the FDA tried to ban menthol cigarettes under the Trump administration. This is from November 15th, 2018. FDA seeks ban on menthol cigarettes to fight teen smoking. Cute. That's actually where it originally came from. It had to do with kids. Today I'm pursuing actions aimed to address the disturbing trend of youth nicotine use and continue to advance the historic declines we've achieved in recent years in the rate combustible cigarettes used among kids. And it goes into saying 78% increase in e-cigarettes used among high school students, 48% increased among middle school students from 2017 to 2018. This data shocking my conscience. And then it does mention in here African Americans, women's replacement smokers. The NAACP is mentioned in here. But it goes on to talk about young adults, okay, and kids. But that's mainly the original purpose. I'm not saying the African American community is not part of this, because it is, and I'll show you. But it was not the primary. It was not the main focus by any means, like it's being pushed now. This is the petition from April 12th, 2013, the Citizen Petition that was signed by many groups, okay? It says, prohibiting the sale of menthol cigarettes is one of the most powerful steps the FDA can take to improve Americans' health. In light of the scientific evidence, there is no justification for continuing to give special treatment to the most deadly of all cigarette flavors. Menthol cigarettes are the source of addiction for nearly half of all teen smokers. Menthol increases the pliability of smoking among young youth members of racial and ethnic populations as well, and menthol increases the difficulty of quitting. Okay? If you go into, and these are all the people that signed on to it, if you go into the main portion, I'm not going to read the rest of this, it talks about mainly young smokers, not necessarily minority smokers. Okay? I'll give you the headlines. Smoking remains a critical public health issue. Menthol cigarettes hurt kids. Menthol cigarettes harm minority smokers. Okay? Prohibiting menthol cigarettes would benefit health. Then it lists a bunch of other people that go for this whole situation. Preliminary statement. Here's the deal. Action requested. And it goes on to statements of ground legislative text intent regarding the FDA regulations, menthol cigarettes, blah, blah, blah. Here are the headlines. Adding menthol to the additives and to prohibit and characterize flavors in cigarettes and cigarette smoking is appropriate to protect the public health as required by the Tobacco Control Act. The Tobacco Control Act happened in 2009. That is referenced. I will show you a little bit of that law. Existing evidence indicates that mentholated cigarettes increase initiation of smoking, decrease cessation. Removing menthol tobacco products from the marketplace would benefit health of youth and overall population by decreasing smoking initiation. Menthol has youth appeal that extends beyond its role as flavoring. The youth attractive properties of menthol cigarettes have profound implications for the health of youth and overall health public. Removing mentholated tobacco products from the marketplace would increase likelihood that current smokers will quit. Menthol is associated with greater likelihood and degree of addiction among adolescents and a decreased likelihood of successful quitting among adults. The physiological properties of menthol have the potential to enhance addiction and undermine cessation. Removing mentholated tobacco products from the marketplace will decrease the prevalence of tobacco use in overall population. Removal of menthol from cigarettes would have a particularly important public health benefit for African Americans and other minority groups. Page 21, 22, partially 23. Out of 48 pages. The health benefits of health benefits of menthol Prohibition would outweigh any perceived challenges. Any risks associated with cessation are manageable and are minimal relative to the risks of continuing tobacco use. And it goes on and on and on. Yes. And then this is in case this comes up later on, okay, saying that this is going to impact the environment or economic in any way. In the original paper, it says, environmental impact. The action requested in this petition will not have any significant effect on the quality of human environment. So anyone who goes on to, and I'm sure it will come up because of this administration with climate change, that this is going to help our air, that's hilarious. Just go back to the 2013 paper. Economic impact. No statement of the economic impact of this request. Action is presented as none has been requested by the commissioner. They're not saying it won't cause an economic impact. They're just saying that it wasn't requested by the commissioner, so they didn't look into it. So all in all, okay, I'm going to show you the Federal Register. All in all, this started mainly having to do with youth and African American minority groups, but mainly had to do with youth. And you can throw in the African American youth category in there if you want. All this had to do with originally was trying to prevent young adolescents from getting hooked onto cigarettes, regardless of race. Period. How this got so goddamn warped into racial equity under the Biden administration is not shocking, but the spin the Democrats are able to do on anything is so profoundly impressive. I cannot stand it. It's amazing. So anyway, this all started in 2013, right? What is that? July 24, 2013. Menthol in cigarettes, tobacco products, request for comment. So obviously this came under the Obama administration. What they did was ask a bunch of questions and wanted you to this was stupid. This was the shittiest advance notice of proposed rulemaking, which is an ANPRM, okay, questionnaire. I've seen quite a few of them under the Obama administration this way. But it's shitty because it doesn't even it gives you the quote background, and very little law does it explain. And then it just goes into, hey, what do you think about this? Blah, blah, blah. And there's like a million questions and you answer it, right? That's what they did under the Obama administration. Then what they did is extended in September 11th, 2013. They extended that comment period section, okay? That's as far as it got under Obama. So then what ended up happening is in 2018, under Trump, March 21st, 2018, regulation of flavors in tobacco products. This was actually excellently written, if that's a word. And this focuses totally on youth, young adult, and everything else. I don't believe it mentions race once. Not once. Here, look. Let's look for fun. Minority. Nope. African. Nope. Black. Blacked out. That's it. Youth is everywhere. This says, specifically, this ANPRM is seeking comments, data, research results, and other information about, among other things, how flavors attract youth, to initiate tobacco product use, about whether or how contained flavors may help adult cigarette smokers reduce cigarette use and switch to potentially less harmful products. FDA is seeking this information to inform regulators actions FDA might take with respect to tobacco products with flavors under the FDA CA Act as amended by the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act. So then, like I said, this was written really well. It gives you a complete background. I mean, this is long. And then it asks you a bunch of questions and you're supposed to respond to them, right? But I wanted to show you the law a little bit here. Like I said, this all is based around youth, okay? It mentions the Tobacco Control Act, which I actually brought up in U.S. Code, because I wanted to see if they were actually able to do this to begin with. Because as we all know, the rulemaking process, using rule changes, okay, to interpret current law is a problem and being abused by many agencies, basically going around Congress. So I wanted to do some background history on this and look up the law to see if they were actually able to do this without twisting something, and they actually are. So I'll show you that. But it goes into Tobacco Control Act includes a, quote, special rule for cigarettes, which prohibits cigarettes from containing characterizing flavors other than tobacco or menthol. And it gives you statute. Statute also authorizes the agency to issue additional product standards, including to address flavors in tobacco products. Gives you some more law. The deeming rule did not include provisions relating to flavors in tobacco products. Nevertheless, the FDA explained that it did intend to consider the issues surrounding the role of flavors in tobacco products, including the role flavors play in youth and young adult use, as well as the existing preliminary data that shows some adults may use flavor non-combustible tobacco products to transition away from combustible tobacco use. And then it goes into the role of flavors in tobacco use. Adolescents, young adults, youth, young adults, greater risk. All it has to do with is everyone in the population, every race as a young adult. That's how this really was approached before the Biden administration. It had nothing to do specifically with the African American / minority group of people. Okay. This is the, what is it called? Tobacco Control Act, okay? Title 21 U.S. Code 387G, Tobacco Product Standards. This is part of it. The special rule for cigarettes is what it was referring to, beginning 3 months after June 22nd, 2009. A cigarette of any of its component parts, including tobacco filter paper, shall not contain as a constituent, including smoking or additive, an artificial or natural flavor other than tobacco or menthol, or an herb or spice, including strawberry, grape, orange, clover, cinnamon, pineapple, vanilla, coconut, licorice, cocoa, chocolate, cherry, or coffee that is characterizing flavor of tobacco products or tobacco smoke. Nothing in this subparagraph shall be construed to limit the Secretary's authority to take action under this subsection or sections of this chapter applicable to menthol or any artificial or natural flavor, herb, or spice not specified in this paragraph. So they are, under current law, able to do this without Congress and without twisting a bunch of shit. There is actually another section that is specifically talking about menthol cigarettes, I found. It is Section E. And they did do this. I'll show you where it was in the Federal Register I found. Menthol cigarettes referral considerations. Immediately upon the establishment of Tobacco Products Scientific Advisory Committee under Section blah, the Secretary shall refer to the Committee of Report and Recommendations under blah, the issue of impact of menthol use in cigarettes on the public health, including such as among children, African Americans, Hispanics, and other racial and ethnic minorities. In its review, the Tobacco Products Scientific Advisory Committee shall address the considerations listed in subsections blah. Report and recommendation not later than 1 year after the establishment, okay, of this committee shall submit a report to the Secretary, recommendations requiring pursuant to paragraph 1. Rule construction, nothing in this paragraph construed to limit the Secretary's authority, blah, blah. They did do this. Advisory Committee, Tobacco Products Scientific Advisory Committee establishment. It happened August 26th, 2009. Final rule. So they actually put together this advisory committee. They met several times because I found all those notices in the Federal Register as well of them meeting, and never came up with anything under the Obama administration. They let it kind of fall to the wayside. They didn't want to deal with it. Instead, they wanted to deal with things that they shouldn't have, right? So then the Trump administration comes around March 21st, 2018, like I showed you, and attempts to do it again in a much more direct, expansive way, explaining the law and what the concerns are, which has to do with youth, young adult, adolescents of all races. Then we come down to the Biden administration, and all of a sudden, it has to do with racial equity. It has everything to do with Black Americans and minority groups. It is shocking how racial equity is now bleeding into everything, period, even things that didn't start out to be that way. So anyone who seems to think that this is like a brand new concept, that the Biden administration's finally listening to the African American community, or African Americans are no longer being ignored, the ones that want to ban menthol cigarettes. Anything that you hear like that is absolute trash, aka fake news. The original 2013 paper I showed you, the Citizens Petition, mentioned African American minority groups for 2.5 pages, but it focused on youth, adolescents, everything else, children of every race. Period. Racial equity is such trash. This is Are You Ready For It? Take care, guys. Have a great morning.